Hi, I'm back. So yesterday, or a couple days ago, as you recall, I went through my layouts and put them in order and put them in albums and put aside the ones that needed journaling. So I thought today we'd talk about the different ways there are to journal, specifically the ways, there's like 3 or 4 ways that I typically like to journal other than just writing directly on my scrapbook layout. There's a lot of different thoughts out there about should I handwrite on my scrapbook layouts or should I type up my journaling and write it out. Obviously, that looks a lot neater. I think it's important to do both actually. If I have a lot to say, I will type it out on a journaling block and include it on my scrapbook layout. If I just have a little bit to say, I will typically probably handwrite it out, draw some lines and handwrite it, and do it that way. I think including your own handwriting is very important for those future generations to see. As an example, I was looking through some recipes the other day, and my daughter said that she had a box, a wooden box of recipes handwritten out by my grandmother, her great grandmother. And she said that that, of course, was very special, and it was fun to look through that and see not only my grandmother's handwriting, but then, of course, the different ways that she wrote with pencil and so forth. But anyway, it was just the point is having your own handwriting is important to save for the future generations. I think it makes your scrapbook pages look more personal. And I know we all say we hate our handwriting. I hate my handwriting, but when I go back and I look at it, I'm glad that I have that handwritten note. So anyway, let's turn the camera around, let's look at some of the layouts, and let's talk about the different ways of journaling. Now let's look at some of the examples that I've already completed on my journaling. And I have these in page protectors already because they were in my albums. But this one you can see I've simply handwritten my journaling with a journaling pen. And actually, I drew lines in pencil, just freehand, and then wrote the journaling, and then I'll go back and erase those pencil lines. So that's the quickest and easiest way, of course, to do your journaling, and that includes my handwriting, so that's good. And then another way I like to do the journaling is to type it out in a text box and then cut the strips apart, each line apart into a strip, and that way I can fill up a little bit more area. I can still leave some space in between so you can see the paper in between, so it doesn't look like just a big white block on your page. And I also like the staggered look of the journaling. I kind of had a little staggered place here that I wanted to put the journaling. So that's another way that I do that, and I'll show you how I do that. And then over here again is another example of some strip journaling. Again, because I had some cute stamping in the background that I wanted to keep there. So I did just a couple little strips on that. Now here's an example how I measured. I knew I wanted I did want a white text box here for this journaling. So I measured the space and opened up a text box in my word processing program, and I like to use notes on my iPad, and I will show you how to do all these. And then I can just cut that out, trim it down with my trimmer, and adhere it to my page. Here's one. I take my journaling and I typed it right on my journaling box here. It was a pre-printed journaling box, and I just measured out the square area where I wanted to put it. And what I do for that is I type it out or print it out on my regular printer paper, and then I can take and print or adhere this right over that journaling and tape it on the printer paper and put it back in my printer without changing anything and print it again, and it'll print right in the space. And I'll show you how I did that as well. Let's see what's on the back. Oh, on the back, remember I had that journaling that I printed out there as well. And I like to do that when I have a lot to say. So in this instance, I had a lot to say about this day, so I knew this was a 3x4. So again, I opened up a text box, 3x4 text box in my notes and typed that out and then printed that out and adhered it to my layout. And then over here is a couple of examples of how I, when I have a lot to say and I don't want that white, like I say, that white text box, like this is a good example. I had the pink paper and I wanted that to show through. If I had printed that on the regular white paper, obviously it wouldn't show through. So I do it on a clear label, and then I can adhere that to my scrapbook page, and the background can come through without being too busy on top of the journaling. And here's another way that I did it on this one too. So I like to do that if I have a lot to say, and I did have a lot to say on this one. And here's another example of how I did the journaling on a clear label. And the reason I wanted to do a clear label is because this paper had a little bit of a pattern to it, and I wanted that to show through, and the pattern was not too distracting to the journaling, so that came through so you could see the journaling, you could see the printing. If I just done that on a piece of cardstock, you know, then again I'd have this big white block, and I didn't want that. So these are all the different ways that I do my journaling, and I am going to show you each one. So let's look at this layout first, and I believe I showed this to you yesterday. I went ahead and I did some strip journaling down here on this triangle, and over here I wanted to put a little bit of journaling about the pictures on this page. So I'm going to draw some lines, and I've already started that here. I'm going to put it on my Versamat. Okay, and then I'm going to take my T-square ruler and line it up, and then just very lightly draw my pencil lines. And I like to make them about 1/4 of an inch apart. And then I'll make more than I need, because I can go and erase that. All right, so then I've got my pencil lines drawn on there. Now I can go back and I can write the journaling that I want. And of course I can add more if I want to. And then when the ink is dry, I will erase it. Now what you want to have is a good journaling pen. And I like these La Pens from, I think it's Marvi Uchida. Okay, so close to my heart used to sell these, but I think you can still get them on the scrapbooking sites like scrapbook.com and so forth. So I'll try to link those for you down below as well. But you want a nice fine point, and one, of course, that is going to be archival safe. So now I can go ahead and write my journaling there. Oh, and one more thing I wanted to mention was I will take and I will write my journaling with my pencil, just to make sure I don't make any mistakes and I get what I want to say, and then I can go back and erase everything after I go over it with my pen. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and show you. All right, so now this one is journaled, and I wrote it with my La Pen. I erased all the pencil marks, got my date, so that one is ready to go in the completed journal. So let me bring in the next one here. I've done kind of the same thing. I had this journaling sticker here. I've written my journaling in pencil here, and then over here I can put the date. Now someone asked me, how do I know the dates if I don't put them on and I have to go back? Well, my phone, when you take a picture, and I think mine's an Android, a Pixel, Google Pixel, and I think your iPhones will do the same thing. The picture, if you go back and look, will have the date, the exact date actually, on it, so I can find the date that way. It will also have the location. where the photo was taken, so I can go back and I can look. And I know this one was this past year, this summer. So I can go back quickly and look for the date for this and put that on here. For the next bit of journaling, I want to show you how I open a text box in on my iPad on the Pages app and type my journaling and then print it out. So let me bring in my iPad, and I like the Pages app. So I open that up, and I've got a new document, new blank document here, and I can go to the plus sign, and I can add a text box here in the shapes. And this, I can move it around anywhere I want. I know I want it to be 3 by 4, so I'll drag this down to 4. Oops, I got it longer than 4. Drag it down to 4. There it is, 4. And I know I want it to be 3 inches wide, so I can make my text box 3 by 4. And then I can just double click and start typing every one. And once I have the journaling and the way I want it, I can go up here. I want to change the fonts, and I can edit that with the paintbrush. And I like using, it's just personal preference, I like using American typewriter. And I also like to left justify it so it's all even on the one side. And then the line spacing, I typically do 1.25, and I do the font size typically at 11 point. So now I've got that the way I want it. I know it's a 3 by 4 box. Now I can send this to my printer and print it off on my white cardstock. I went ahead and printed out the journaling, and I started trimming it down, and I thought I had that at an 11 point font, and I thought that just looked a little bit too big, so I changed it to a 10 point font, and I think that looks perfect. And it's still 1 1/4 line spacing, so I had a little bit of extra room down here. I added some stamping so I can adhere that here, and then I found a little die cut image, stamped and die cut image that was already stamped and die cut. So I thought I would add that down here, and that actually is a bonus because it adds this, brings this fluorescent pink color down to the other side, and I kind of think I needed that over there. So we can just take this off. We can get our tape runner, and you can see I was trying out different colors here for my stamping, and I can add that to the to my layout. And then we can take this and add that as well, and then this will be ready to put into my album. Let's talk about the next kind of journaling, and that is the strip journaling. So I start that the same way by opening a text box on my iPad. Like you can see here, I've got the text box. I knew I wanted it to be about 3.5 inches wide, and then I printed out my text on some cardstock, and I've got a piece like this. Okay, so I've printed that out, in this case on very vanilla, well, French vanilla cardstock, because I wanted it to do some strip journaling for this layout. And the reason I wanted a strip journaling is because I was going to put it right here over this circle. So the 3.5 inches will fit. All right, and then I did the same thing and put them at a 10 size font and 1.5, or not 1.5, 1 1/4 inch spacing. I cut down the borders. I can take my little trimmer and I can just go in between those spaces and keep moving it forward and trim off each strip. Now and then I cut them all down into strips and put them where I want them. Put a little bit of my Barely Art glue on the back, using my tweezers to pick them up easily. Then I can put them in place. And then that's how I do the strip journaling. One of my favorite ways to add the journaling is to print it on the clear label sheets, as I've done on this layout. So basically, you just are going to open up your text box again, type the journaling that you want, and instead of printing it out on your cardstock, you're going to print it out on a clear label sheet. Now, what I have found for this particular type of label that I'm using, if I take my anti-static pouch and pounce on it first, I find that it dries much quicker and it doesn't smear when I try to rub it into on my layout. All right, so then I'm going to just go ahead and print that out. And I also have found that when I do print, let's get to the print. If I do it in media and quality, and if I put it on the draft mode, it actually prints much better than if I were to put it on normal or best, because the ink would sit right on top of that label sheet. And instead, if I put it on the draft, then I don't have as much black ink. So I'm going to go ahead and send this to the printer, and I'll be right back. Now I have this journaling printed out on my label sheet and adhered down to my layout right here. And as I said, I use the anti-static pouch before I printed, and I actually use it after I print as well, just to absorb anything. But I just printed this like 10 minutes ago, and I can just rub it right into my layout, and it's dry and it's not smearing at all. So like I said, I think that's probably my favorite way of adding journaling if I'm not going to handwrite it myself, is to have one more way of journaling that I want to share with you. So you may remember that I said sometimes I take a pre-printed piece of ephemera and print right on that. So as I've done here on this layout, and then also I did it on this layout as well. I had a square that I cut from a die cut shape, and I wanted to print right on there. So the same thing, I measured my space to find out how big I want my text box, and I open it up in my word processing program, a new text box, and I type out my journaling. Now I don't have a layout for this one yet, but I know I am going to scrapbook these photos from last Halloween, and I found this tag shape in my stash. So again, I measured the area where I wanted my journaling. Now, I went ahead and I printed it out on copy paper. Now all I have to do is take this shape, lay it over top where I want my journaling, and just put a little piece of adhesive on the back. Okay, just like that. Now when I run that through my printer again, it will print right on there. And as long as I don't make any changes to my original document, and I get the tag right behind that original printout, it prints out beautifully, and I'm all ready to create my next layout